What up, people? Mike Steph here with another edition of Mike Steph's WrestleMania Memories. We are now in the year 2009, WrestleMania 25, or as they want you to say, the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania. Listen, this WrestleMania, to my recollection, it was mid. The best match on the card was, of course, one of, if not the best match in the history of WrestleMania. And that would be the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, going against the Phenom, the Undertaker. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and the Undertaker. A year prior, in 2007, at the Royal Rumble, had a mini match per se, had a encounter that first time these two had touched since HBK made his return after his 4 year sabbatical, if you will, from back injury. They had not touched since the beginning of 1998. So this was about 9 years in the making when they touched in the Royal Rumble 2007, and it was magic. And of course, in the back of everybody's head, it was like, darn, what would happen if they fought at WrestleMania? So 2008, they touched again, but it wasn't as epic. But that's because they were saving everything for this WrestleMania match. It was the fact that they were diametrically opposed of each other. You had the Undertaker from the dark side, and then you had the born again Christian in HBK Shawn Michaels. You had the darkness, you had the light. You had black, you had white. And their entrances were epic. You had HBK coming down from the heavens, so to speak. And then you had the Undertaker rising up from the depths of hell. The match itself was phenomenal. Even for the part in which Undertaker went for his infamous WrestleMania dive, and he came up a little short, and he almost fell on his head, almost landed on his head. But um, people say it wasn't his fault. It was the cameraman's fault, who was actually Deuce from Deuce and Domino. I think son or nephew of Jimmy Snooker, what have you. He was in the right place, but neither here nor there. Major injury was avoided, and this match goes down in the annals of time as one of the best matches of WrestleMania history. So much that they had to do it twice. Undertaker, of course, came out on top. He retained his undefeated streak, and HBK went on a 1 year mission to make up for what he thought was inches away. There were so many near falls. There's so many false finishes in which you thought HBK was going to come out on top. Everybody, if you know the history of Shawn Michaels, this was the one time in which you're going into WrestleMania and it's not a foregone conclusion that the Undertaker was going to come off. Like by this time it was what? Undertaker was what? 17 and 0, 18 and 0, something to that effect. Eh, yeah, about 17 and 0. But if there was anybody that would quote unquote be placed or be allowed to break that streak, it would be somebody with the cachet, both on screen and off screen, both in the ring and out the ring, of Shawn Michaels. Remember, he said, remember one of his famous lines was, "The Heartbreak Kid lays down for absolutely no one." And when he said lay down, he's talking about, listen, I don't job, I don't do the job. But so there was always that inkling in the back of your mind of, with these false finishes, Will Shawn Michaels be able to do the job? Will Shawn Michaels be able to overcome? Will Shawn Michaels actually be the one to end the rest the WrestleMania streak of the Undertaker? Now, this was the second year in which CM Punk won the Money in the Bank ladder match. And this time he decided to cash in once again in June, but this time against Jeff Hardy for the World Heavyweight Championship. Jeff Hardy had just won the championship in a grueling TLC match against Edge. And CM Punk began his heel turn, his slow burn heel turn, by coming down and by the rules, correctly, by the rules, cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase. This time, his reign wasn't that long, but it was a little bit more newsworthy than the reign he had the year prior. He did everything in the reverse the year prior. He won the world championship, then he lost that in quick fashion. Matter of fact, he didn't even lose that. He got the he got taken out of a match by Randy Orton. This was the beginning of the Viper. Randy Orton not only was menacing, he had his own clique called Legacy. You know who was in that clique? Coincidentally, as we are on the road to WrestleMania 42, a young Cody Rhodes, along with a young Ted DiBiase Jr. And in the very, very early days, we had Manu of the Samoan dynasty. He didn't last. Ended up being just the three: Orton, Rhodes, DiBiase. They took out CM Punk backstage. CM Punk did not even lose his championship. He was written out of storylines for that championship. And then he started winning. He won the Intercontinental Championship. He won the Tag Team Championship with Kofi Kingston. And then he finally got up. It's almost like they gave it everything to him a year early. And he got up and he won the championship for the second time by cashing in the briefcase for the second time. But what was real bad about this WrestleMania was the main event. The main event was the Viper Randy Orton going against the Game, the Cerebral Assassin, Triple H. The lead up to that match, and of course I have no thumbnail for that, so you're just gonna have to pay attention to me. The lead up to that match was Randy Orton doing everything in his power, punting Vince McMahon in the head, going against Shane McMahon, uh, DDTing Stephanie McMahon and kissing her unconscious body while Triple H was handcuffed mere inches away, helpless. Triple H going to the residence of Randy Orton and invading the residence with his trusty sledgehammer and throwing Randy Orton through his own living room window. The lead up to this match made you think that it was going to be a bloodbath. It was going to be a rampage at WrestleMania. So, what did they do? Well, remember, this is the PG era. What did they do? They made this match stipulated if Triple H, with all the harm that had been done to him and his in laws, if Triple H did anything to get disqualified, he would lose the championship. In a match that screamed for Hell in a Cell, in a match that screamed for No Holds Barred, in a match that screamed for, if not gushing, just a little bit of trickle of blood, this match was a long slog. Triple H and Randy Orton, throughout their history, never had good matches. And this goes back all the way from 2004. It seems like Triple H, for everything that you wanted, that he wants to portray as he was the man that had Randy Orton and Batista under his wing, and him and Ric Flair groomed him for main events. Ever since Randy Orton finally got over with not even with the Legend Killer, yeah, with the Legend Killer gimmick in 2024, in 24, I mean 2004, and he became the youngest world heavyweight champion by beating he who shall not be named at SummerSlam 2004. And then they promptly kicked him out of Evolution, and they promptly put the title back on Triple H. Ever since then, every time Randy Orton seems like he started getting a foothold, like he was going to be the man, he was going to be the next great heel, he was going to be this generation's cerebral assassin. Triple H made a point to put him back in his place. And they had slog after slog after slog after slog. Unforgiven 2004, Royal Rumble 2005, and WrestleMania main event 2009 is just like the rest. And of course, who comes off on top? Triple H. Randy Orton went on that rampage. He was on a tear for 6 months. This was supposed to be his culmination. This was supposed to be his coronation. He won the 2009 Royal Rumble. How many people win the Royal Rumble and go on to WrestleMania to lose that championship match? Especially back then, not many. Not many. Yes, he was a heel, but he was the hottest thing they had in that company, and his flame was effectively extinguished by the cerebral assassin. In other news, we had a triple threat for the World Heavyweight Championship with the Big Show, Edge, and John Cena. And do you know what this revolved around? No, it didn't revolve around the championship. It revolved around Vicky Guerrero. Edge had Vicky Guerrero around his finger, and then she started using the Big Show to get Edge um, jealous, and John Cena was in between, just trying to get a championship match. It was okay. You had Chris Jericho. He had a match in which he faced Jimmy Superfly Snooker, Roddy Piper, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, making his first appearance in a WWE ring in maybe 20 years at that time. And he looked good. So good that they actually ran a series of matches between Chris Jericho and Ricky the Dragon. But this was all in promotion for The Wrestler, the movie in which Mickey Rourke was supposed to be in WrestleMania, and I think he copped out at the last minute. So at least the in ring part, or he couldn't get cleared due to his responsibilities in Hollywood. Neither here or there. It was okay. It was fine. You had the first match between the Hardys, Hardy versus Hardy at WrestleMania, which was it seems like these brother versus brother matches at WrestleMania never pan out the way they're supposed to. Hardy versus Hardy, Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy. Matt Hardy ended up being unveiled as the person who was tormenting his brother, getting him in accidents, making it look like he was on drunken stupor. Yeah, that was going to bring the ratings. But the match, nothing to write on about at all. They tried this, I want to say, way back in 2001, 2002. That time was over Lita. Matt Hardy was dating Lita, but Lita thought that Matt Hardy was going over the edge a little bit and was befriending Jeff, and yeah, they had some friction or whatever, but it didn't work then. Didn't work in 2009. And if you fast forward, they tried to do the same thing with the Usos to a different degree, and it didn't work back then either. It's just something about brother versus brother. You would think, you would think the matches would be great, but they're not. Same thing with the Steiners back in the day. Steiner versus Steiner always sucked. Never mattered. Didn't matter if it was singles, didn't matter if it was tag. It just never clicked. Never clicked. Kind of think of it. Do you think? Can you remember any brother versus brother besides the classics in which Brett and Owen put on in the early '90s, mid '90s? And they're just a different breed. They're just a different breed. So yeah, the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania. Eh, this was, I swear, this was a time in which WrestleMania was dry. It was, I don't know, it was something was missing. But once again, they were, I won't say they were the only game in town. No, they wasn't the only game in town because we had TNA, but TNA was what TNA was. LOL, TNA. You know, it was what it was. So that brings it to the end. I guess I would check y'all on the other side. And our next stop on WrestleMania Memories will be in the desert, Glendale, Arizona to be exact. WrestleMania 26, 2010. When a lot of, mm, I guess we'll have to wait until back. We'll have to wait until we get there. So, with all that being said, thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing, and I will check you then. Goodbye.